I still remember that evening with painful clarity. The house was full of laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. My son, Daniel, and his wife, Jessica, had invited friends over for dinner. I was sitting quietly in the living room, knitting a scarf for my granddaughter when I excused myself to fetch some water from the kitchen. That's when I heard it, Jessica's voice, sharp, dripping with contempt. She won't last long anyway. Old women like her just fade away. I just hope she doesn't become a burden before she goes. I froze. For a second, I thought my ears had deceived me. My hands trembled, the glass slipping slightly from my grasp. My heart pounded in my chest like a drum. Daniel's voice followed, low but not low enough. Jess, not so loud, she might hear you. Jessica let out a cruel laugh. So what if she does? Maybe it'll make her realize her place. This is our home now, not hers. The words pierced through me like knives. Our home now, the very house where I had spent decades of my life raising Daniel, where every corner held a memory of my late husband. I gripped the counter for balance, my knees weak. Me. What? What did you just say? Jessica spun around, her smile fading instantly. She hadn't noticed me standing in the doorway. Jessica. Oh, I didn't mean it that way. You know how jokes are. Don't take it seriously. Me. A joke? You called me a burden. In my own house. Daniel. Mom, please. Jessica didn't mean it. Let's just forget this, okay? I looked at my son, my only child, and my heart cracked. His eyes didn't hold anger at his wife's words, only discomfort that I had overheard them. I walked back to my room, my scarf abandoned on the couch. My mind was spinning. The walls that once held warmth now felt suffocating. Every laugh from the dining room sounded like mockery. How quickly love can turn into cruelty. I thought of the nights I had stayed awake when Daniel was sick as a child, cooling his forehead with damp cloths. I thought of the sacrifices I made after his father died, working double shifts just to make sure he could go to college. And now, this was my reward. Whispered insults, and the title of burdened tears streamed down my face silently, but inside me, something else stirred. A fire, a reminder of something no one in this house, especially Jessica, knew. The next morning, Jessica acted as if nothing had happened. She hummed while serving pancakes, smiling sweetly at Daniel. Jessica. Good morning, Mother. Did you sleep well? Me. Yes. I did. Sometimes silence reveals more than words ever could. Daniel looked up uneasily, catching the tension. Jessica quickly avoided my gaze. I pushed my plate away untouched. Daniel, can I speak with you later? Alone, Jessica's eyes narrowed, but she forced a smile. Of course. Family talk, right? That day, I spent hours sitting in the garden, staring at the roses I had planted years ago. Their thorns reminded me of Jessica, beautiful to look at, but capable of cutting deeply. But unlike Jessica believed, I wasn't weak. And unlike Daniel thought, I wasn't just an old woman waiting for life to end. I carried secrets. Secrets that could shatter the illusion of control they believed they had over me. That night, as I locked my bedroom door, I whispered to myself, they think I'm just a burden, but soon, they'll know the truth, and it will change everything. The secret I had hidden for decades was about to surface, whether they were ready or not. Sleep refused to come to me that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Jessica's cruel words echoing in my mind like a haunting melody. She won't last long anyway. She's a burden. But Jessica knew nothing about the storms I had weathered in my life. She didn't know about the struggles I had faced, the sacrifices I had made, or the secrets I still carried. She saw me only as a fragile old woman in her way, if only she knew. After Daniel's father died, I was left with nothing but debt, a mortgage, and a little boy with big brown eyes who asked me every night if everything would be okay. I worked 3 jobs back then. Mornings at a diner, afternoons cleaning offices, nights sewing clothes for neighbors. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. But I never let Daniel see my despair. For him, I smiled, even when my hands bled from scrubbing floors. There were times when the electricity was cut off, times when I skipped meals so Daniel wouldn't have to. Yet, I never complained. Every dollar I saved, I put aside for his education and this house, the house Jessica now dared to call hers. I wasn't entirely alone during those years. There was Mrs. Harper, my elderly neighbor, who often slipped me loaves of bread when she noticed I hadn't eaten. She was the kind of woman who saw pain in silence. There was also Mr. Collins, the diner owner, who let me take leftovers home after long shifts. He'd often say, "You're tougher than you think, Margaret. Life bends you, but it won't break you." And then there was Evelyn, my sister. We weren't always close, but she was the only one who knew about the secret I guarded, the one I had buried deep in the folds of my past. Evelyn often warned me, "One day, Margaret, you'll have to tell Daniel." Secrets can protect, but they can also destroy. The next morning after breakfast, I asked Daniel to walk with me in the garden. Jessica hovered nearby, pretending to water plants, but clearly eavesdropping. Me, "Son, are you happy?" Daniel frowned, surprised. "Of course, Mom. Why would you ask that?" I studied him. He looked tired. There were shadows under his eyes. His smile didn't reach his face. Me, "Because sometimes love can blind us to what's happening around us, and I worry about you." He shifted uncomfortably, glancing back at Jessica, who quickly busied herself with the roses. "Mom, Jessica she has her way of speaking. Don't take it personally." But I could see the hesitation in his eyes. Something inside me whispered that Daniel wasn't as blind to Jessica's cruelty as he pretended. Over the following days, I began to notice little things I had ignored before. Jessica controlling Daniel's finances, snapping when he tried to make independent decisions. Jessica discarding the meals I cooked, claiming, "It's too salty," or "It's not healthy," even when Daniel reached for them eagerly. Jessica making small remarks at dinner like, "You know, Daniel, once we renovate this place, it'll finally feel like ours." That word again, ours, as though my decades here meant nothing. One evening, I overheard Jessica on the phone. She was whispering again, her tone sharp. "No, it's not her money yet. But once she's out of the way, everything will come to us. Daniel won't resist. He's too soft." My heart dropped. Money? What money? She didn't know. She didn't know what I had kept hidden. Years ago, when I worked at the diner, an elderly customer named Mr. Whitmore came in every morning. He was a widower, lonely but kind. We often talked. When he passed away unexpectedly, I was stunned to learn he had left me something in his will, a sum of money and shares in a small but growing company. I never told Daniel. I put everything away, invested quietly, and lived as though nothing had changed. Over time, that small company grew into something much larger. I wasn't rich by the standards of the world, but I was far from poor. And Jessica? She had no idea. That week, Evelyn came to visit. She took one look at me and said, "You're hiding something again, Margaret. What's going on?" I broke down, telling her everything Jessica had said. Evelyn's eyes flashed with anger. "That girl has no idea who she's dealing with. But Margaret, you can't let this go on. Daniel needs to know the truth. Me. Not yet. If I tell him now, it will look like I'm trying to destroy his marriage. He has to see her for who she truly is, and he will. Soon." That night, I left my room to get some tea. and found Jessica in the study, rifling through drawers. She jumped when she saw me. Jessica. Oh, I was just looking for a pen, but I noticed the papers in her hand, my late husband's old files. Me. You won't find what you're looking for there. Her eyes narrowed for just a second before she forced another smile. I don't know what you mean, but I did. She was searching for ownership papers, bank details, proof of wealth. Later, as I lay in bed, my heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. Jessica thought she was clever, but she had no idea how much danger she was playing with. I whispered to myself, she believes I'll fade away quietly, but she doesn't know the past I carry, or the power I still hold. The next morning, I planned to make a move, a small one, but enough to shift the balance. Jessica wanted me gone, but I was about to show her. I wasn't going anywhere. The tension in the house grew heavier each passing day. Jessica grew bolder with her remarks, while Daniel grew quieter, trapped in a tug-of-war between love and loyalty. I, however, had reached my breaking point. It was time for confrontation, but not a private one. No, Jessica had humiliated me in whispers, in the shadows. The truth deserved light. I decided it would happen during Sunday dinner, a family gathering where Jessica's parents, Daniel's colleagues, and a few neighbors were invited. A full table, witnesses. The dining table was set, the aroma of roasted chicken filling the room. Jessica had gone all out, determined to display herself as the perfect hostess. She wore pearls and a smug smile. Jessica, to family and new beginnings. Her words were honey-coated poison. I stayed quiet, but my mind replayed her phone call about once she's out of the way. Halfway through dinner, I placed my fork down deliberately. The sound echoed louder than expected. All eyes turned to me. Me. I think it's time we talked about what family really means. Jessica froze, her smile faltering. Daniel looked uneasy. Jessica. Oh, Margaret, must we spoil dinner with heavy talk? Me. Heavy? Number. Honest, yes. You see, I've been hearing things in this house. Cruel things. Daniel stiffened, glancing at his wife. Jessica's face turned pale for a second before she recovered. Jessica. Are you accusing me of something? Me. I don't accuse. I repeat. I heard you say she won't last long anyway. Old women like her are just a burden. Gasps erupted around the table. Jessica's parents exchanged shocked glances. A neighbor murmured, My God. Daniel's face drained of color. Jess, did you really say that? Jessica, so what if I did? I was frustrated. We can't live forever catering to her needs. This house should be ours, Daniel. The room went silent. Jessica's own mother whispered, horrified, Jessica. Daniel looked as if the ground had vanished beneath him. He rubbed his temples, muttering, I can't believe this. Me. After all I've given, all I've sacrificed, this is how you see me. I reached into my bag and pulled out a sealed envelope. Placing it on the table, I slid it toward Daniel. Me. You think this house is yours because you married my son. You think I'm clinging to something I no longer deserve. But here's the truth. Daniel opened the envelope, his hands shaking. Inside were copies of documents, deeds, bank statements, investment portfolios. His eyes widened as he read. Daniel, Mum, these shares, this company. How? Jessica snatched the papers from him, her eyes scanning greedily. Her jaw dropped. This can't be real. Me. It is. While you thought I was just some old woman, I was quietly building a fortune from an investment I made decades ago. This house isn't just mine. It's built on years of sacrifice, blood, and survival. And the wealth. You couldn't even imagine the room erupted. Neighbors whispered furiously. Jessica's father cleared his throat, embarrassed. Daniel sat back, overwhelmed. Jessica, however, wasn't done. You've been hiding this? All these years. While we struggled, while Daniel worked late nights, you kept this secret. Me. Struggled? I gave Daniel everything. His education, this home, his life. And you call me a burden? No, Jessica. You are the burden, feeding off what you never earned. The words hit her like a slap. Daniel finally spoke, his voice low and broken. Jess, were you with me for me, or for what you thought you could take from us? Jessica's silence was the loudest answer. Then, in desperation, she snapped. You don't understand. I did what I had to. Do you think I wanted to marry into a family with nothing? I thought she'd be gone by now, and we'd finally have control. I deserve this. Her confession stunned the table into silence. I stood, my hands steady, despite the storm inside me. Me. You talk of control, Jessica, but what you don't know is that Daniel doesn't own this house. Neither do you. I transferred ownership years ago. Jessica's head whipped around. What? To who? I turned toward the doorway. At that moment, Evelyn, my sister, stepped inside, holding a folder. Me. To her, my sister. The only person I trusted with everything. Gasps filled the room again. Jessica's face turned ghostly pale. Me. You thought I was powerless? You thought I had no one. But the truth is, you were never in control. Jessica's glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Daniel covered his face with his hands, unable to process the betrayal from the woman he thought he loved. I looked around the room, at every stunned face. My voice was calm, but my heart thundered. This is only the beginning. You wanted me gone, Jessica, but now it's your turn to face what's coming. Jessica stumbled back, her eyes darting between me and Evelyn, panic flooding her face. And then Evelyn spoke, her voice cutting like a blade. Jessica, you may want to sit down, because we know more than you think, and your lies are about to come out. The room went dead silent, the air charged with electricity. The room was frozen in silence after Evelyn's words. Jessica stood trembling. Her wine glass shattered on the floor, her mask completely stripped away. Daniel looked like a man watching his life collapse brick by brick. Guests, neighbors, colleagues, Jessica's parents sat stiff, wide-eyed, waiting for the next blow. It was no longer just a family dinner. It was a trial, and Jessica was about to face her judgment. Evelyn stepped forward, her folder clasped in her hands. She wasn't just my sister. She was a lawyer, sharp and relentless. Evelyn, Jessica, we know about the credit cards you opened in Margaret's name. We know about the quiet transfers from Daniel's accounts into your private one. And now, in front of everyone, we will show exactly who you are. She laid down copies of bank statements and credit reports on the table. Daniel leaned forward, his hands shaking as he read. His face went from confusion to fury in seconds. Daniel, voice cracking. Jess, tell me this isn't real. Please, tell me you didn't steal from my own mother. Jessica, stammering, eyes darting wildly. I only did it because we needed more money. You don't understand the pressure. Evelyn cut her off sharply. Pressure? You have jewelry, luxury handbags, spa trips, all paid for with Margaret's name. That's not survival. That's greed. Gasps spread across the table. Jessica's own father dropped his napkin and muttered, "Dear God." I finally stood, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Me. I gave you a home, Jessica. I welcomed you like a daughter, and while I cooked meals and folded laundry, you plotted to erase me. Tell me, was it worth it? Jessica's lips quivered, but no sound came out. One of the neighbors, Mrs. Callahan, spoke up, her voice laced with disgust. "You whispered about her being a burden, Jessica. But the truth is, you are the burden. We all see it now." The room erupted in murmurs of agreement. The humiliation was complete. Jessica's perfect image was shattered in front of her friends, family, and community. Daniel suddenly stood, his chair scraping back with a screech. His voice was raw, broken. "Daniel, I loved you. I defended you against my mother when I should have listened to her, and this is how you repay us. You used me. You used her. You disgust me." Jessica reached out to him desperate, but he pulled back violently. "Jessica, Daniel, please, I did it for us. Don't you see? Once your mother was gone, everything would be ours." Her slip of the tongue was fatal. The room went dead silent again. Daniel's eyes widened in horror. "You wanted her gone? You were waiting for her to die?" Jessica's silence was louder than any confession. Evelyn placed one final document on the table. "Evelyn, and just so you all know, Jessica wasn't just waiting. She was planning. She took out a private insurance policy on Margaret without her knowledge. A policy that only pays if Margaret dies within the next 2 years." The collective gasp was deafening. Jessica's own mother covered her mouth with both hands, tears streaming down her face. Jessica fell into her chair, pale as ash. No, that's not what it looks like. But it was too late. Every shred of her facade had been ripped away. Evelyn turned to me, her voice calm. "Margaret, we can press charges immediately. Fraud, identity theft, attempted exploitation of an elder. It's all here. She won't walk away from this." Daniel nodded, his jaw clenched tight. "Do it. She doesn't deserve a second chance." 2 neighbors, who were police officers off duty, quietly stepped forward. One of them muttered, "We'll call this in." Jessica's scream pierced the room. "No, please, you can't do this to me." But her pleas fell on deaf ears. The very people she had tried to charm now looked at her with disgust and betrayal. Daniel sank into his chair, burying his face in his hands. I placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. For all his blindness, he was still my son, and he was hurting. Me. You loved her. That's not a crime. What matters is what you do now. Daniel looked up, tears in his eyes. "Mom, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to forgive myself." I squeezed his hand. "Start by learning who deserves your loyalty." And who never did? Jessica was led out of the house as murmurs swirled. "She's heartless." To do that to her own family. Poor Margaret. Poor Daniel. The humiliation was total. Jessica, once admired for her poise, was now branded a thief, a liar, and a parasite. As the night ended and guests filed out, Evelyn turned to me. "It's over, Margaret. She'll face the law. You can finally have peace." But as I looked at Daniel, broken and lost, I felt the weight of something deeper. Was this truly the end? Or just the beginning of a longer battle? For his healing, for my family's future, for the scars Jessica had left behind? I stared at the empty wineglass Jessica had dropped, its shards glinting on the floor, and a single thought haunted me. What other secrets might she have left buried, waiting to surface? It has been 14 months since that night, since Jessica's mask crumbled in front of everyone, since Daniel's world shattered, since my own wounds, though invisible, became undeniable. Time doesn't erase pain, but it does dull its sharpest edges, and as the seasons passed, I began to learn that healing isn't about forgetting, it's about choosing what to carry with you, and what to finally lay down. Jessica was convicted of identity theft, financial fraud, and attempted elder exploitation. The trial was grueling. I sat in that courtroom, Hearing her lawyers spin excuses, watching her cry crocodile tears, but the evidence Evelyn had gathered was irrefutable. The jury didn't take long. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison. When the verdict was read, I didn't cheer. I didn't feel triumphant. I only felt empty. Because justice doesn't always come with joy. It sometimes comes with grief for what had to be lost to get there. For months after Jessica's arrest, Daniel barely spoke. He lived like a ghost in his own home, working, eating in silence, sleeping, repeating. One evening, I found him sitting on the porch, staring into the distance. Me, son, you can't keep punishing yourself. Daniel, I let her use me. I let her use you. I was supposed to protect you, Mum. Instead, I helped destroy you. I took his hand, squeezing it gently. You were blinded by love. That's not weakness. It's humanity. What matters is that you opened your eyes in time. Daniel's healing wasn't fast. But slowly, with therapy, with support, with prayer, he began to find pieces of himself again. And one day, he said the words I had been waiting for. Mum, I want to make it right. Together, we started something unexpected. The Safe Hands Foundation, an organization dedicated to protecting the elderly from financial fraud and exploitation. We held workshops in community centers, spoke at churches, distributed guides on recognizing manipulation. Evelyn handled the legal side, Daniel managed outreach, and I told my story. Standing in front of rooms filled with gray-haired faces, widows, grandfathers, widowers, I spoke. I thought betrayal only lived in strangers. I never thought it could sit across my dinner table, but it can. And that's why you must protect yourselves, not out of fear, but out of love for the life you've built. Every time I saw heads nodding, every time a tear slid down someone's cheek, I felt the fire inside me burning, not with anger anymore, but with purpose. The very neighbors who once pitied me now stood beside me. Mrs. Callahan became one of our volunteers. Local banks even joined, offering free fraud prevention services for seniors. It was as though the wound Jessica left had become the seed for something far greater. Pain turned into protection. Humiliation turned into empowerment, and that is something she could never steal from me. 2 years after the trial, Daniel sat across from me at our kitchen table. He looked healthier, calmer, like the weight he carried was finally lifting. Daniel, Mum, I've met someone. And before you worry, she's kind, gentle, nothing like Jessica. She knows everything about my past, and she still wants to walk beside me. I smiled, though tears blurred my vision. That's all I want, son. For you to find someone who loves you without conditions, without greed. For the first time in years, I saw hope in his eyes again. There are nights when I still hear Jessica's whisper in my dreams. She won't last long anyway. But instead of breaking me, it now reminds me of my strength, because I did last. Longer than her schemes, longer than her cruelty, longer than the darkness she brought into our home. And in lasting, I found something stronger than vengeance. I found freedom. So, what did I learn? I learned that betrayal may wound you, but it doesn't define you. I learned that family isn't about blood. It's about loyalty, compassion, and truth. I learned that silence, when faced with cruelty, is complicity, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to speak your truth, even if your voice trembles. To anyone watching, anyone listening, if you've ever been called a burden, remember this: your worth is not defined by what others take from you, but by what you choose to give the world. And sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well. It's healing. It's building something beautiful out of the rubble they left behind. Now, when I sit on my porch at sunset, Daniel sometimes joins me. We sit in silence, sipping tea, not needing words, because we survived the storm. And maybe, just maybe, that storm was the very thing that cleared the path for us to see the stars again. So I ask you, watching this, hearing my story, have you ever been betrayed by the very people you trusted most? And if so, what gave you the strength to rise again? I want to hear from you. Share your story. Because in telling, in listening, in remembering, we heal together.